Hello, dear friends. Till now, in the lecture series of pharmacodynamics, we have discussed about the principles of drug action, mechanism of drug action, in details about the receptor mediated drug action, dose response relationship, functions of the receptor, and now, lastly, a very important topic, that is regulation of the receptor. But before going ahead, if yet you have not subscribed this channel, please subscribe it and press the bell icon. Now, learning objectives of today's lectures are: understand the genesis of upregulation of receptors, then genesis of downregulation of receptors, and then clinical importance of upregulation and downregulation of receptors. Now, first of all, what is in general meaning of regulation of receptor? Now, this concept came from receptor doesn't exist in our body in a static state. Their numbers, their level of ongoing activity, it is not static. It is existed in a dynamic state. So, the number and the sensitivity of the receptor is going to be varies continuously over a period of the time. And the factors that decides this changing number and the sensitivity are: one is the level of ongoing activity, then feedback mechanism by the receptor themselves, and third, very important, is physicopathological conditions. I am explaining you by giving one example. You all know that oxytocin is responsible for the contraction of the myometrium of the uterus. Okay, and estrogen sensitizes or we can say that estrogen increases the action of the oxytocin for this function. Now, as the pregnancy advances, especially in the third stage, the sensitivity of the uterine myometrium towards oxytocin is increased. The oxytocin receptors are also increased, and it is peak at the term, which is responsible for the initiation of the labor. So, what I want to say is the number of the oxytocin receptor and their sensitivity, it again differs. It not remains same. Now, first we discuss the downregulation of the receptor. Now, this is a target organ. These are the receptors present on the target organ, and we have given the agonist for a treatment of a particular condition. Now, the agonist binds with the receptor and produces the action. Now, if we are giving this agonist over a period of the time, what will happen? Can you see the difference between the first figure and second figure? In the second figure, the number of the receptor, that is, decreases, and there is somewhat internalization of the receptor. Receptor shifts inside the cell. That is known as an internalization of the receptor. So, agonist still binds with the receptor, but because of these two processes, the ultimate biological effect, that is decreased. Now, if you are still going to give the agonist over a period of the time, what will happen? There is a further decrease in the number of the receptor and more internalization of the receptor. Still agonist bind, but you can see that now the binding of the agonist to the receptor, that is decreases, as well as because of the internalization of the receptor is also there. So the ultimate biological effect, it will be further reduced, and a time will come that even if you increases the amount of the administered agonist up to a very high level, still you will not get the desired response. So, my dear friends, chronic exposure of the agonist, it will lead to First, decrease in the number of receptor, then second, internalization of the receptor, and third, decrease sensitivity of the receptors. Okay, so this is known as a down regulation of receptor. Now, what is the clinical importance of down regulation of receptor? As we are using the agonist for a prolonged period of the time, we have seen there is a down regulation of the receptor, and because of this there is a decreased effectiveness of agonist mediated clinical response, and that is known as a tolerance. Now you are having two possibilities: either you have to increase the dose of that agonist, or you have to switch over to the another drug. Now in first instance, if you increase the dose, again after a period of the time, because of the tolerance, that dose is also not sufficient, and you cannot increase the dose up to indefinite level, because after certain dose range patient will start experiencing intolerable adverse effects. So you are having only one option, that you have to switch over to the other drug, and that's why the clinical importance is long-term use of agonist. Remember, this word is very important. Long-term use of agonist is not possible. And the classical example is salbutamol in bronchial asthma. Now salbutamol is a beta-2 receptor agonist. These receptors are present on the tracheobronchial tree, and when these receptors are stimulated, there is a bronchodilation. And we all know that salbutamol is the most rapidly acting, most potent bronchodilator, and it is the drug of choice for termination of acute attack of bronchial asthma. But at the same time, we cannot use this drug for a prolonged or indefinite period. The reason is the downregulation of the receptor. Now, upregulation of the receptor. This is the target organ, and these are the receptors present on the target organ. Now we have given the antagonist or the blocker, so they bind with the receptor, and because of this the receptor is not going to be stimulated. It means the conformational change is not occur and the biological effect is not seen because of the agonist. Now if you are still giving this antagonist, then what will happen? You see the difference between first figure and second figure. There is an increase in the number of the receptor, and there is an externalization of the receptor also. So again, the antagonist binds with the receptor, so no agonist mediated action. Now even if you still increases the use of the antagonist, okay, so if you use the antagonist over a period of the time, you can see that the receptor numbers increases, externalization of the receptor will be there, and increased sensitivity of the receptor will be there. So in short, chronic exposure of the antagonist, that will lead to increase in the number of the receptors, externalization of the receptors, and increase the sensitivity of the receptors. Now my dear friends, please don't misunderstand that if in this case if we are increasing the concentration of the agonist, then it can displace the antagonist. The purpose of showing this figure of the agonist molecule over here is not that we are giving agonist and antagonist simultaneously. Okay, we are just only giving the antagonist over a period of time. Then what will happen? That there is an increase in the number of the receptor, increase in the sensitivity of the receptor. And if you suddenly withdraw the antagonist at that level, what will happen? That now all these receptors are free. So agonist molecule will bind, and there is an significantly increased, that is known as an exaggerated response. So sudden withdrawal of a blocker or an antagonist, it will lead to exaggeration of the response. Now what is its clinical importance? prolonged use of the antagonist, it will lead to upregulation of the receptor, and in that case, if you do sudden withdrawal of the antagonist, because of the increase in the number of the receptor and increase in the sensitivity of the receptor, there is an exaggeration of the agonist mediated response. So what is the take home message? Should we not use the antagonist for a prolonged period? Or should we not use the antagonist at all? No. There are situations in which you have to use antagonist. You have to use antagonist for a longer period of the time. But the take home message is, if you are using the antagonist for a longer period of the time, and then when you feel that now this antagonist is not required, then there must be gradual withdrawal. Okay? And again I am explaining you by giving the same example. In the previous slide we have seen the beta receptor agonist. Here we are looking at the beta blocker, but there is a beta 1 blocker. You all know that beta 1 receptors are present in the heart, and it is responsible for the increase in the force of the contraction, increase in the heart rate, increase in the conduction. So overall increased functioning of the heart increases the oxygen demand of the heart. So if we are blocking the beta receptors that is present in the heart, then they can be useful in the ischemic heart disease by decreases the oxygen demand of the heart. Now, if we have used this beta blocker for a prolonged period, and then if we suddenly stop the beta blocker, what will happen? That because of the increased number, increased sensitivity of the beta receptor, there is a tremendous increase in the force of the contraction, heart rate, conduction, and overall oxygen consumption of the heart, and there are chances of the precipitation of the anginal episodes. Even there are chances of development of acute myocardial infarction also. Okay. So, in short, in case of upregulation of the receptor, first of all, it is seen with an antagonist or blocker which is used for a prolonged period of the time. There is an upregulation of the receptor, and that's why gradual withdrawal of the blocker should be done. And in downregulation, we have seen when we use the agonist for a longer period, because of the decreased number and the sensitivity of the receptor, the response gradually diminishes. So this is about the upregulation and downregulation. In the next class, we will discuss about the combined effect of the drug. If you find this channel useful in your learning, please subscribe to this channel and share among your colleagues. Okay, wait till the next lecture.